Well, welcome back. And it's just such a joy and a privilege for us to have Alan and Kathryn Scott with us. They head up a church just in Northern Ireland called Causeway Vineyard. And, you know, obviously a lot of us have probably been singing Kathryn's songs for quite a while. Hungry, hungry, I come to you. There you go. And lots of other amazing songs. And then Alan, I remember last couple of years ago, I was at a conference called New Wine, and Alan was doing the morning teachings. And it was on Ephesians. Still remember, it's just so powerful. Great communicator, but also what they're seeing in terms of healing, but also just the kingdom coming. And what I love is they've got a vision, not just for a church, but for their city and beyond. And they're seeing amazing things. So I'm wanting to learn all that I can from these guys. I listen to your podcasts all the time. Love it. So it's just so good that we have these guys here to input into us. So let's give a huge warm welcome to the Scotts.
Wow. Thanks so much, guys. What an honor to be here and to journey the presence of the Lord together. And this seminar is on worship and healing, how those two operate together. And I want to begin just with the story of a guy that we came across recently who was leading worship. He was a young worship leader in his early 20s, and he was just about to quit. And the reason that he was just about to quit, in his own words, is that he felt like a failure and a fraud. He felt like he sung about these things, but he never ever got to see what it was that he was singing about. And he said, something feels hollow. Something feels like it's missing in this. And he was living in that tension and that frustration between worship and healing. He was singing, how great is our God, but he wasn't really seeing that greatness when he prayed for the sick or when he attempted something for God. And he was absolutely torn because he loved the King, but he wasn't seeing the kingdom. And my suspicion is that may be the journey for some of us in the room today, that perhaps you occasionally find yourself a little bit torn between declaring one reality and not always seeing what it is that we declare. And as worship leaders, we know that we're called to heal the sick, we're called to feed the poor, we're called to love justice, and we're called to do all of that to see the King and to demonstrate the kingdom.
That was definitely my journey in this whole thing. I've been leading worship for about 17 years, since I was 2. And, 4. And, and I was living with the same tension, just this, my reality just didn't match up with what I was singing about. I knew that God was the God ready to break in with salvation, yet I wasn't leading anybody to faith personally. I knew that God was ready to heal, and yet I really wasn't seeing very much healing. And we have a little joke around our place that sometimes whenever I prayed for people, I caught what they had. And I thought, even when people would come to me and I would maybe share that, and they would say, Kathryn, don't worry, the songs you write, they're encouraging the ones who are going out and seeing the kingdom come. Whilst that's true, it wasn't enough. There's sometimes a holy frustration that comes that you have to recognize as an invitation, because there is more, and we're meant to join in too. I felt like I couldn't declare this stunning reality of who Jesus is in the Gospels and not see that matched up in my life as well. I guess other people's stories weren't quite enough for me, and I know you feel the same. It can be a little overwhelming though, can't it? All the things, when you read the scripture and you start to think, this turf is my turf. This is the stuff that I'm supposed to see happen. It can be really overwhelming because there's a lot. The kingdom showing up means a whole lot of things. And it can be tempting to feel inferior when we're not seeing the supernatural in the areas where we lead worship. The thing is that we know we can't just push that on to someone else. You see, just as everyone is called to worship the King, and we know that's true, so everyone is called to demonstrate the kingdom. If you follow Jesus, then signs and wonders and kingdom stuff follows you. That's the way that it works. And so when we're not seeing that and we're living in the tension, we can start to feel inferior Or we can be tempted to think that maybe it's not our job. But just as much as I would say to someone who can't play guitar or who can't play the piano, you're not exempt from worshiping. So I need to say to me, who can play the piano, you're not exempt from seeing the demonstration of the kingdom. The call to worship is inescapable. The call to justice is inescapable. The call to healing the sick is inescapable. As a worship leader, my honor of God, which is our job as worship leaders, isn't it? To take honor and direct it where it's due. It has to go beyond the building and beyond singing, because it's the life that we live that makes sense of the songs we sing. Isn't that true? Otherwise, it's just a noisy gong or a clashing cymbal. And I know that each one of us here, we've come here because we long for our worship to matter in heaven. We long for our King to be able to smell that aroma. And each one of us here know that that's not singing songs. It's living the way that He has ordained for us to live, and then we get to sing songs out of the overflow of that. So really, this whole thing of worship and healing and the kingdom really boils down to obedience. And it is awkward when we get to that place where we start to think, okay, if we're not exempt, how on earth do we engage with this? It's simply obedience. And as Alan always says, the awesome is in the awkward. I wish it wasn't, truth to tell. I wish we could don a super suit and do stunning things for the King, and it wouldn't feel that awkward. But it is. And you've got to start somewhere, don't you? We all know this already, but everything that we do is worship. Every corner of our lives, every decision we make, every encounter that we have an opportunity to take honor and give it to God. And so this is not just about what we do as worship leaders on a Sunday or wherever it is or whenever it is that you lead worship. It's every day of the week. And at the very beginning of my journey in this, when the Lord was just really stirring my heart, I thought, I'm going to have to take the risk. Do you know that horrible sinking feeling? Some of you are having it right now. And one of my first experience in this, I was actually going somewhere to lead worship, or maybe I was coming home, but I was in the States, and I'd flown into Chicago just on the way through to wherever it was that I was going. And I saw a lady in a wheelchair, and she had one leg visibly shorter than the other. Super duper shorter than the other. I would say a good foot. And that was not meant to be a pun. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Sorry, anyway, a good 30 centimeters or so. And anyway, do you know those moments where the Lord catches your attention? And we're going to talk a little bit about this later on. It's those moments where the Lord catches your attention with something, and you know to follow Him means you're going to have to be obedient. And I saw this wee lady being wheeled past by her husband, and my heart started to thump, and I thought, oh no. Because the thing is, over and over and over again, I've been in a room or I've been on the streets where we, not usually me to be really honest at that point, had been praying for people, and we'd seen one leg shorter than the other grow. And I know that God does that. So I saw that lady and I thought, oh gulp, here we go. So I'm standing there with my wee suitcase, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna have to go for it. And I start walking over to her, and honest to goodness, you'd have thought I was going to have an epileptic fit. I didn't look in too great shape myself. And I go over to the lady, and the whole way over I'm thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to say to this lady. What do you say? Short leg? From one short leg to another. I didn't know what to say. So by the time I didn't even have time to really think about it. I'm standing in front of her, and I said, hello. My name's Kathryn, and I'm a Christian, and I noticed that you might have a bit of an issue with your leg. I go to a church where we see a lot of healing happen, and I just wondered, would you like me to pray for your leg? And she didn't answer me. Her husband did. And with a fair bit of pity in his eye, he kind of looked at me and said, no, thank you. We're okay, thank you. And I walked away sort of. My legs are wobbling like jelly, and I found a fairly hidden place to just go and gather myself. And I was like, Lord, why did you do that to me? The awesome's in the awkward, though. Because I am certain that in those moments when we learn to take the risk, when we start to see even just that glimpse of God doing something, and we don't get too hung up on ourselves, we get to see incredible things happen later on in other places. It doesn't always feel comfortable, but to be honest with you, all I was trying to do in that moment, and all I've tried to do ever since, is to respond to what I think the Lord is doing in a room at any given time. Obedience to his promptings is worship. It's all worship.
Everything we do is worship, isn't it? And I wonder for a moment, how many of you are worship leaders somewhere? Just, wow. Great. Could you maybe take a moment, that's probably most of the room, could you take a moment and just describe to the person beside you what it is that you do? What the role of a worship leader is? It's not a trick question or anything. Okay. Now you've probably within that, you've talked about perhaps singing songs and writing songs and leading the community in worship and all of that stuff. But I want to suggest to you today that perhaps your central calling, the thing that a worship leader does above all else, is they direct honor appropriately. Their call is to gather honor and to direct it to the one who is worthy of all honor. And as worship leaders, our task, and one of the things that I love most about worship leaders, is that you're jealous for God's honor. You're covetous that the one who deserves all the glory gets all the glory. Sometimes you take it a little bit too far, don't you? And when people come to you at the end of a set and they say, that worship was amazing this morning, and you say, it wasn't me, it was all him. And they want to say to you, but they're far too polite to say to you, I think if it was all him, we would have noticed. They say, I think your singing might have been a little bit better. And sometimes we take it a little too far, but the heart behind it is amazing. You're just saying, I want all the honor, all the glory. You're jealous that his glory would be given to him. You don't want any other rival having his glory. And so you're not only a worship leader, you're an honor leader. And honor does something when it enters a room. When honor sees injustice, honor covers it with dignity. Where honor sees oppression, it releases the oppressed. When you begin to think of yourself as more than a song singer or a song leader, but someone who makes sure that the Father gets the honor in any room that he deserves, it begins to change the way that we approach culture, for example. Worship in the middle of culture is contending for God's honor in every corner of that culture. Education, media, the arts, all of that stuff. And so you're involved in shaping culture because you're bringing honor to the Father. And one of the reasons that we heal the sick is the same reason that Jesus healed the sick. He often healed the sick because those who were sick were marginalized from the community. They didn't have the same rights in the community. And one of the things that he did in healing them was restore them to full honor and full belonging in the community. And that's all we're doing when we balance healing and worship. We're just saying, look, Father, we want your name to be above every other name, and we want you to be seen, to be honored in this context. And so you heal the sick because you long for his name to be above every other name.
In worship, we declare God's character, we treasure His presence, we remember His goodness, we celebrate His faithfulness, and encounter His holiness. We magnify His name, and then we demonstrate that His name is above injustice, and it's above exclusion. His name is above every sickness and every disease. And every time we honor the King, the kingdom advances. Every time we elevate His name, we prepare ourselves and everyone around us for an encounter. That's what leading worship is. That's what it looks like. Do you know what would be lovely? Just for a minute or two, and I don't have a piano, so we might start in the wrong key here. But will we just sing just a couple of minutes? Do you know the song Breathe? Will we just sing it for a second? Because there is nothing like His presence. And His presence is already all over this room. And we've just encountered Him. But will we just spend a minute or two doing that? Would that be okay? And go for it in harmonies, please. It would be wonderful too. Me, 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 me. Does anyone have perfect pitch? I'm so naked without a piano. I wonder if this works. No. No, it really doesn't. All right. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you, and I'm lost without you. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you, and I'm
continue just for a moment to wait in his presence. One of the things that we discover in worship and healing, probably one of the key things to bear in mind, is that his presence is his power. That you can never experience his presence and his power not be in the room. So if his presence is in the room, his power is in the room. And I want just for a moment to show you how, if you were leading that song in worship, as we continue to receive, as you were leading that song in worship back at your home church, wherever that is, just how then you might unlock healing in the room just in that moment. And so you might say his presence is his power. We've just treasured his name, and that means his kingdom is among us. And very simply, I'll lead now as though I was leading the room. What I want you to do just for a moment is just to breathe in his presence. We've just sung, "This is the air I breathe." And I want to guide you for a moment that you're breathing in the wholeness of his presence. You're breathing in the fullness of his presence. You're breathing in who he is. And as you do that, as you breathe in, and this is how we would do it at home, we would just say, some of you in the room, even as you're breathing in his presence, some of you are being healed.